Rain whispered across the city like a secret no one dared to speak aloud. In the grand estate perched high above Crestmont Hill, where chandeliers glittered and silence echoed more than laughter, Alexander Moretti stood alone at the edge of his glass balcony. The storm washed the night in shades of gray, and beyond the cold pane of glass, the world looked like a place he had never quite belonged to, even though it all technically belonged to him. His tuxedo hung half unbuttoned, and his cufflinks, gold, engraved with his initials, lay forgotten on the marble countertop behind him. In his hand, a half-drained glass of scotch trembled faintly, not from the cold, but from something older, deeper, a kind of weariness that money could never cure. Alexander Moretti, 33, billionaire tech magnate, twice named Forbes' most eligible bachelor, stood in his $27 million mansion and felt utterly, dangerously alone. He had built an empire that spanned continents, revolutionized AI logistics, and made him the envy of men who still couldn't sleep at night. But lately, he had begun to wonder, what good is legacy if no one waits for you at the end of the day? The knock came just before midnight, soft, hesitant, like it didn't belong in his world. He turned. There she stood. Her uniform was plain, a black dress with a white apron and sensible shoes, the kind no one noticed. But he noticed her, had been noticing her for weeks now. Her name was Amara, 25, quiet, with eyes like dusk, soft, thoughtful, unassuming. She moved like a shadow, always present, never loud. Hired by the estate manager 6 months ago, just one of the rotating servants that dusted around his life without ever stepping inside it. But she was different. She didn't try to impress. She didn't shrink. She simply existed in quiet defiance of noise. "I'm sorry to interrupt," she said, her voice barely above the rain. "But the guest house's pipe burst. I thought you'd want to know before the staff starts fixing it in the morning." He nodded. "Thank you." She turned to go, but he surprised himself. "Wait," he said. "Amara, do you ever feel like this house is haunted?" She tilted her head slightly. "By ghosts?" "No," he said, turning back to the night. "By silence." She didn't respond at first, but after a moment, she stepped closer. "I think silence can be loud," she said softly, "sometimes louder than anything else." He looked at her then, really looked. There was something in her eyes that made his chest ache, a softness the world hadn't managed to steal from her. And just like that, the idea took hold. The next morning, Amara was called to the study. She entered with practiced grace, bracing herself for another quiet request. But what he said next turned her blood cold. "Marry me," Alexander said simply. Amara blinked, laughed, softly, awkwardly. "Excuse me. I want a marriage. A contract. 1 year. You'll be paid generously. Your family, if they need anything, will be covered. In return, you stay here. As my wife. In public, we play the part." She stared at him, mouth parted, brows drawn. "This is a joke." He shook his head. "I need a wife, Amara. The board wants to see stability. The investors are sniffing around for weakness. A happy, grounded man makes better headlines than a lonely one." She swallowed. "You want me to pretend to love you?" "No, just to be here. Dinners, appearances, public smiles. That's all. I won't touch you without your consent. You'll have your own room. Complete privacy." "Why me?" "Because you're not interested in me." She hesitated. He handed her a file, the contract, already drafted. With it, a check. Amara's hand shook as she read the amount. It was more than her father had ever made in a decade. Her father, the man lying in a hospital bed, waiting for a transplant the system kept delaying because they didn't have enough money. Her brother, working 2 jobs to keep their home from collapsing. Her younger sister, brilliant, was unable to finish school because tuition had tripled. She looked up. "And when the year is over?" He looked tired. "We walk away. No questions asked." She signed it 2 hours later. The wedding was small. Paper perfect. No vows. No kisses, just photos, champagne, and a ring that cost more than her entire childhood home. Amara wore ivory. Alexander wore indifference. To the world, they looked radiant. To each other, they looked away. But something shifted that night when she walked in her new room, one floor below his, next to the piano lounge no one used anymore, and found a note on the bed. "You're not invisible." Not to me. No signature. But the handwriting was his. 3 weeks into the marriage, the rhythm set in. He worked late. She read quietly in the atrium. They met only during breakfast and public dinners. But he watched her. How she greeted every staff member by name. How she rearranged the flowers in the dining room because they deserved better than stiff corners. How she lingered at the piano even though no one played it. One night, he caught her there, her fingers moving over the keys gently, not pressing down, just remembering something. A life before this one. "You play," he said. She was startled. "Not anymore." "What?" Life got louder. He sat beside her, for the first time, close enough to notice the scent of lilacs in her hair. "Play for me," he said. She hesitated. Then, slowly, her fingers settled on the keys. The melody was soft, haunting, a song about sorrow, maybe, or longing. He closed his eyes. He hadn't remembered what peace felt like until then. At week 6, the first crack in the arrangement appeared. He came home, drunk late. The press had published a brutal article, speculating about his past, his father's death, the therapist he used to see. He threw his jacket to the floor, loosened his tie, collapsed into the chair in her reading room. "I'm tired," he whispered. Amara looked up from her book, closed it, set it down. "I know." He looked at her, and for the first time, didn't see her as an employee or an actor in this farce. He saw her, calm, grounded, real. "I don't know how to do this," he said. She rose, walked toward him slowly, then knelt beside his chair. "You don't have to have all the answers," she said. "You just have to stop pretending you're not bleeding." Something broke open then, not loudly, just quietly enough to matter. By month 3, he started joining her at the piano. By month 4, they had inside jokes. By month 5, the media began whispering that Mr. Moretti had never looked so grounded. But it wasn't grounding. It was an awakening. It was month 6 when Alexander first touched her hand. Not in a way that claimed or insisted, just a gentle brush as he passed her a teacup on the veranda. But it lingered, and Amara felt it long after the ceramic had gone cold. Neither of them mentioned it, but the air between them shifted, heavy with something unnamed. She found herself watching him more often. The way his jaw tightened when he read the news. The way he leaned back when he laughed, which was rare, but growing. The way he looked at her when he thought she wouldn't notice. Like she was no longer part of the background. One evening, the house lost power during a thunderstorm. The generator was down. The mansion went black and still. She found him in the study, lit only by the glow of a fireplace. He looked up. "Are you afraid of the dark?" "No," she said, stepping inside. "It's the quiet that gets me." He chuckled, low and unexpected. She took a seat opposite him. For a long moment, they said nothing, just the sound of fire, rain, and something deeper settling between them. "I used to think," he said slowly, "that success would be loud. Headlines, applause, parties with people who clapped when I entered the room." He paused, eyes distant. "But it's not. It's empty hotel beds and voices you don't trust. It's cold dinners and boardrooms where no one knows your middle name." Amara said nothing, but she reached forward, gently pulling the throw blanket from the back of the chair and draping it over his shoulders. He watched her like he'd never seen anything so human in all his life. And in that moment, Alexander Moretti knew. He wasn't pretending anymore. By month 7, the media frenzy began. Photos of them walking side by side, smiling in galleries, attending book launches, whispering to each other during speeches. "Real love," one headline read. "The Ice King and his flame," another. But the world didn't matter anymore. It was the morning Amara remembered most. The quiet rituals they built, brewing tea in silence, wordlessly sliding toast across the table, eyes meeting over newspapers folded with care. By then, they share a bed. Not for duty, not for performance, but because neither of them could sleep without the other's breathing nearby. He hadn't kissed her yet. Not fully. Just a soft brush against her temple once, after she told him her father had finally been approved for surgery. But every night, his hand found hers beneath the sheets. Fingers curled like a vow he didn't yet know how to say. It was month 9 when everything shattered. A tabloid leaked the contract. A former employee, bitter and disgruntled, released a copy of the signed marriage agreement. Headlines exploded. The marriage is a lie. Contracted love. Billionaire's secret deal exposed. Who is Amara, really? The media turned cruel. Reporters camped outside the mansion. Drones hovered above the estate. Every channel speculated about the servant who tricked a billionaire into a stage fairy tale. That night, Amara locked herself in her room. Alexander pounded on the door. Amara, let me in. No, I didn't leak it. You know that, right? Silence. Talk to me. But she didn't. Not for hours. When she finally opened the door, her eyes were dry. Her voice was quiet. I was a servant, Alexander. To them. That means I must have schemed, lied, climbed into your life for status. You didn't. I know that. But they won't believe it. And worse, they'll make you look weak for choosing me. He stepped forward. Let them. She stared. You don't get it. Then explain it to me. Amara looked up, her voice trembling. I love you. The silence was sharp. I didn't mean to. I told myself this was pretend, that I was just helping my family. But somewhere between contract clauses and piano songs, I started waiting for you to come home, listening for your footsteps, watching you smile, and thinking it was mine to protect. Tears welled in her eyes now. And now it's all over. Because the moment they see that contract, they'll think everything I feel is fake. He stepped closer. Amara. But she shook her head. Don't. Please don't say anything unless you mean it. Alexander stared at her. Then he did something unexpected. He dropped to his knees, took both of her hands in his. I've spent my whole life chasing what I thought I needed. Status. Control. Security. But you're everything I didn't know I was looking for. You're at peace in chaos. Laughter in rooms I forgot how to smile in. You're the first real thing that's ever happened to me. His voice broke. And I'm sorry I needed a contract to find you. She dropped her knees with him, eyes wide. He leaned forward. And this time, he kissed her. Not softly, not briefly, but like a man who had finally found home and never wanted to leave. The media storm passed in time. Alexander released a statement, unapologetic. Yes, he said in a live press conference. We started with a contract, but somewhere along the way, love tore it up. He looked directly into the camera. I don't care what anyone thinks. I'm keeping her. Their 1-year contract came and went, but they never discussed an end date again. Amara played piano every Sunday morning while he read poetry aloud on the rug beside her. They argued sometimes about paint colors and politics and whether pineapple belongs on pizza, but the love never left the room. He held her hand every day. She kissed him goodnight every evening. And when their daughter was born 2 years later, dark curls, amber eyes, laughter like wind chimes, Alexander held her and whispered, You're here because someone brave loved out loud. The media storm passed in time. Alexander released a statement, unapologetic. Yes, he said in a live press conference. We started with a contract, but somewhere along the way, love tore it up. He looked directly into the camera. I don't care what anyone thinks. I'm keeping her. Their 1-year contract came and went, but they never discussed an end date again. Amara played piano every Sunday morning while he read poetry aloud on the rug beside her. They argued sometimes about paint colors and politics and whether pineapple belongs on pizza, But the love never left the room. He held her hand every day. She kissed him good night every evening. And on quiet nights, when rain tapped gently against the windows of their still too big mansion, Alexander would whisper the same thing into the dark. "You were never just the woman I married." And Amara, always half asleep, would smile and murmur back, "I know. I was the woman you found."